So the first thing we kind of have to do, I don't know if we define the divisions at this point or on the player turn, but yeah, basically that's one thing that has to be done. So, it doesn't really make too much of a difference because all of our divisions are probably going to be doing the same thing. So what we're going to do is look here, and what we want is to find the chart. Here's the chart. Okay. So defensive is probably our best choice here. That could get us some things that aren't bad, like advance to combat, but it's most likely to get us shield wall. So I think that's what we're going to do. We're just going to grab defensive and put that on all three. Now, these don't actually have to be face down because the other player is busy doing theirs. What about for this? Well, we don't want to just charge. What we want to do is we want to unleash our missile advantage, which means we take a look here and we look at what our options are. Hold isn't bad. We want to avoid things like advance though. Advance and charge look dangerous. So I think we too are going to go with defensive, just because we are in range here, right? Our bow is our max range of 3. The chance of a success isn't very good, but we're going to put 3 on each of these. Let's look at our sequence of play. And yeah, I found my regular six-siders are here, which makes me happy. I would hate to use my kind of rounded ones for this. And now we actually roll the different orders. Again, I don't have a lot of room here. Well, let's do the Normans first, and we'll start with their Bretons. And, right. So we roll this. And we get a 7. Defensive, that's a hold for the knights. And the foot gets an advance to combat 1 turn. We'll look up what these are going to mean in a little bit, but then we'll do the Normans. And we get a 10. Defensive. That's a charge 1 turn on the knights. And you can see, you don't really have a lot of control over what's going to happen. And we took defensive 10 here. That's a melee fire moderate. I think that's melee in place in this case. I'm not entirely sure. That doesn't really make sense. Battle order melee fire. I think they mean in place instead of moderate. Okay. And now finally, I'll look it up later. We look at the final one, which was also defensive. We have a hold for the knights. And we have the foot. We rolled this already. Advance to combat 1. Then we'll come over to this side as my pants are falling down. I've gotten so fat I broke my pants. And everybody's on a defensive here, so we'll start with the left flank. Now here we really don't want to be charging out, but we get an 8, which is melee fire in place. I think that's going to be kind of safe. We hope. Center. Oh yeah, and I don't know if options can happen, but we're allowed to, or there's something that we're allowed to do something with if we roll. I don't remember what it is. 7 shield wall. That's precisely what we want. I'll have to look that up too. And 2, okay, we got an optional. We don't really know what's happening. We'll go with shield wall there. Now I've got to look at these because I kind of fucked up here. So my shield walls give me -2 strategy. I'm going to go with a melee in place with the right, actually, because I'm pretty sure he's not going to attack this round. So melee in place, those are -1s each. So that's the right and the left, and the center has a -2. And then over on this side, we have to pay attention to these as well. So here, the Bretons got, I don't remember what, but they got a hold, which is a -2. And the foot got an advance to combat 1, which is a +1. So I think we get a net effect of -1 for their morale. It seems like since they come up with different values, they have different strategy effects, so you have to sum them. I didn't know that was the case. Charge 1 and melee in place. +2. And I think this is -1, so we get a +1 on whatever that is, the reds. And remember, our goal here is just to kind of stay towards the middle. That's going to be very hard for the Saxons because they're going to be constantly in this defensive position. So if they don't advance forward, they don't get their morale bonus. Here was a hold and an advance to combat 1. That should put us in the same place as green is with this. All right. Now where are we? Now we're on the Norman side of the game. So I'm going to put these here and then try to figure out what the rules mean, you know, what these different orders mean in terms of trying to accomplish what I'm going to do. So under the normal situation, we'd have a rally. We don't want to do that. The next thing we have is our missile segment. Well, we want to unleash some of our missiles. I don't remember how many we have. It's written down up here somewhere. But that's not it. Missile supplies. So Norman bowmen have 6 missiles in this period. And I'm going to have to use paper and pen for this. And that's going to be kind of painful. I'll catch it at the end. So the 2 knights that are holding, they're not allowed to move at all. The charge order and melee in place, I believe I'm allowed to move 1 hex. Advance to combat, I'm allowed to move as far as I like. But I don't have to. But the charges are a scary one. Let's see what that's going to force us to do. It's a voluntary order that allows us to increase. If the conditions not be met, the individual knight will be in advance to combat. Well, if we recall, advance to combat's unrestricted. So this isn't bad at all. Charge. The last 2 hexes can't be uphill. Well, the last 2 hexes are going to be uphill going up here. So we're not going to be able to actually do a successful charge. What's cool about the charge is it gives us bonus morale. So it's kind of a great roll, actually. Melee in place, I believe, allows us to move 1 hex. May either advance or retreat 1 hex. So let us look. First we have our fire combat phase. Well, we have 2 bows, which can fire at 1, 2, 3 range here. We'll see if this makes sense. 3 range, 2 bows. That would give us a total strength of 6. We don't know what we're hitting. Everything except the center is in melee in place, which means they'll be using normal defenses of 5, so we can get a 1-to-1 melee roll. That doesn't sound too bad. 1-to-1, that's 1 die. We get a 5, that isn't a disorder. And we were going to do, say, this guy. Okay. Over here we get a problem. We need 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. We can't all hit the same space. That's troublesome because anything within 6 of him is going to be shield wall. I'm going to hold off on firing my center because his center's in shield wall, and I don't see much point. But I will fire the left here, and I'll try to plink off this guy in the corner. That'll be a 1-to-1. Again, we're not expecting to kill anyone because it's impossible. But we get a 3, that's a morale check. He's an A morale. A morale, we can look over here. These tables are the same. 5, he also is disordered. So we've gotten some good results there. Of course, he gets his rally phase. Before we can do anything, I've got 1 remaining, which can fire a 3. I'll plink at this guy, and he is going to be 3-to-5. Here comes trickiness. 3 plus half of 3 is 4.5. That's not going to be 1-to-1.5, so it's going to be 1-to-2. The best I can do is a morale check. I don't get that. Now I've got to mark my ammo expenditures. I have written down here, the Bretons and Flems have each spent 1. Okay. Back in the days before they wanted to use tracks for everything, people were a little bit more willing to use paper than they are nowadays, I guess. Now we're on the Norman movement phase. Now, like I said, I'm kind of willing to move forward a hex. These guys are in hold, so they're not going more than a hex. And what about the cav there? Oh, I'm sorry, they're in advance to combat. They actually could move more than a hex. Let me, I should actually do these. Space out a little bit more there. These guys are in hold, so I can move them 1 each. I have to be careful. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Keep everybody in command. Otherwise, we got some problems, right? Okay, now these guys, the horses are in charge. The infantry's in melee in place, but I can still advance 1 space with all these infantry, as long as they don't hit anyone. And these were in charge. I don't know. Let's look at, I mean, I can move. River. Stream is just +1 movement point to cross. So, and there's 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Nothing too exciting going on here. I'm going to move William down a little bit. I don't know how much that downslope costs. Nothing additional. But these guys are the same as those, which means I haven't advanced to combat. That means I'm allowed to move 3 hexes. Again, I have to be kind of careful not to outrun my total range. 1, 2, 3, 4. He's in it right there, so I'm not in trouble there. These guys, though, only have a hold, so they're only moving 1 hex forward. And let's move useless up a little bit closer, just so you can have it all in command. So that's my movement. Nothing too exciting here. But I'm playing everything out. I don't know why. Just because I've gotten in the habit of showing. Now the Saxons are able to move according to the rules governing reaction. Well, that's 5.4. Now the shield wall guys definitely cannot react. Melee in places can. I don't think I want to react. I'm presenting the best sort of defense that I can, basically. So I'm not going to take any reaction movement here. And then, do I have any missiles that I could fire? Well, my bowman could fire wherever the hell he is, but he's too far away. My javelins aren't really exposed in a way that they can shoot, so we'll say no. And then melee, the Normans would be able to launch melee, but obviously nobody's in the line. Which means we go over to the Saxon side of the turn. Okay. By the way, the special place is probably this one. The other thing, other than right around Senlac Hill, that has serious issues, there's like a 1 hex space. Well, that's probably that thing. I didn't look it up. Here are our reinforcements coming in for this turn, randomly picked out of the cup. And let's see what happens for the Saxons. Now, what's kind of funny is because the Normans get to go first each turn, but everybody picks at the same time in the turn. There's sort of an asymmetrical, situation that arises from the turn order itself. But I don't think it's that bad because one side's on the tactical defensive here. So the first thing we have is the rally phase. Now, since these guys aren't routed, they actually have to roll. I believe they have a benefit of 1 in their roll. And we're rolling over here. And they're both A's, so 1 through 6. Oh, look. I wasted ammo. And I seem to remember that about this game, was that, yeah, you really can't do much against the Housecarls by firing bows at them. Which may mean that I change my tactics. Okay. Now we're at the Saxon missiles. None of them can really fire, as we determined before. Saxon's movement. Now, these guys have melee in place. This is a shield wall. I don't have to move anything. These are my exceptions. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And they're now in command of the center for whenever that matters, but it's not a hell of a lot. And basically nothing happens because there's a Norman reaction segment. Well, I could look this up. The guys in hold can't go anywhere. The advanced to combats, I think they're not allowed a reaction. I have to look for... No, it's attack and pursue that's not allowed a reaction. So I would actually be allowed to react. Do I want to? Because I don't remember. I think in this game it may actually be to your advantage to hit during the other player's turn. And if that's possible. But I need to try to remember why that's the case. Other than because it's kind of counterintuitive and it prevents the Normans from being able to win without the battle going for a long time or something like that. So let me see what that reaction movement is like. There we go. 1 hex away only. Okay, and you cannot move into enemy zones of control. Alright, so that either, if I did it, it's something that was illegal, or it's just a memory that I really don't have, but... See, I remember there's some little trick in this game, and I don't know quite what it is. Okay, so that means we're not going to be doing any reactions. What about our missile segment? Okay, here it is. This is when I'm supposed to fire, because after I fire, I launch my attack. So yeah, we're going to launch another round of missiles with the hope of disorganizing the shield wall at this point. I'm not going to go through each one firing it on camera. I'm going to pause away so that we don't waste camera on a lot of garbage. Reasonable results, actually. I mean, no more than before, but now we're in the position. Again, I did not fire the center. We're in a position where we can kind of try to be a little more aggressive on the flanks, because unlike some games like Agincourt or whatever, there's no real. Yeah, there was a rollicking good time. There's no real chance to wear the enemy down through missile fire, or the Art of Siege games where you're trying to knock the walls down and you really kind of have to bombard them for a while to get them weak enough that you can launch an attack. It's not like that here. These things are just pretty much going to recover as long as we have those housecarls in the front. And so yeah, that's the end of the turn. We'll push over here, put these suckers here, and we're going to be assigning new orders and assessing them. Now in some cases, I don't think anything was, everything was just on a one-turn order, so nothing's on a two-turn order. Those are a little different just because you know that you're keeping them, so the strategy you take doesn't affect that particular part of the command. Okay, so now we're at kind of an interesting, this is the second turn, or an important part. But I want to point out a few things. First of all, none of these are in the two spaces. So I'm going to just pull them all off. And the same here, these guys are all out of play. We don't know. Oh, weird. I used the wrong things. Gotta write the center. My eyes are really going bad. And left. Now is sort of the decision-making point in terms of where we're going to hit. The danger, of course, for the Saxons is the possibility of the morale dropping from just standing. What we kind of hope is that the game keeps us close no matter what. Plus, we've taken some disruptions, so we're going to throw all defense again. But there is a little bit of a game of chicken there where you could wait and hope that their morale is kind of breaking a little bit before you launch the attack. The thing is, for the game as a whole, the Normans have a limitation on time. They have basically, 2 of these 8-round periods, and I'd like to win the first one before too many troops show up, right? So, we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I'm going to put defs on the center. But then what I want to do is I want to consider a chart as to what I might want to do to smack in. I'm not too interested in what the horses can do. What I'm interested in here is what my infantry can do. And basically the question is, well, why would you ever take like moderate or cautious? Yeah, and usually you're swinging between like aggressive and defensive in this. There's so many different stances. I look at my morales and they're holding up okay. So I definitely feel like the defensive is safe there because he's actually got the strongest morale. I'm going to go with moderate on both flanks, hoping to avoid the forced charge type. I mean, charge isn't really forced, but I'm hoping to avoid the things that more force my action, my hands. All right. Well, it's time, and it's really more guesswork than like any kind of analysis. It's too early and my eyes are too blurry to be able to do much. So let's start rolling these. So the Bretons have taken a moderate. approach. And they get a 7. That's a hold on the knights with a -2. And an advance to combat 1 turn with the infantry. And that drops me 1 morale. Oops. Alright, the center is defensive for the Normans. A 3 on the defensive. So hold on the knights. It's like -2. And an advance to combat 1 turn on the center. And that drops them 1. And finally the Flemish, who are on the moderate. I hope I did that right. Yeah. The Flemish is a 4 on the moderate. Advance 1 turn with the knights. That's +1. I don't know what that's going to do. Yep. And shield wall across. Uh-oh. With this. Now, I think aggressive allows you to override that, is what it is, but I don't really remember. My brain is going. So the shield wall is a -2, and the advance 1 is a +1, so I lose 1 morale off that. And I got exactly what I don't want, pretty much. The knights get to move and the infantry doesn't. Let's see about our defensives here. And I mean, I really love that, like, you try to do things and the command runs and does something different than what you're trying to push them to. Okay, let's go with the, I guess, the left wing first. 5. Attack and pursue 1 turn. Center. Advance to combat. That attack and pursue is dangerous. Advance to combat. Oh, I haven't been checking these. Advance to combat gives me 0s, which is fine. The attack and pursue, 1 turn, I hope, is just a +1 the left wing. So they make their way up a little bit. Let me look these up and see what we're likely to see. Let's sum up the effects that we see on the orders right now. And these are open once they've been once these have been revealed and rolled for. So obviously the holds we've already seen. The advance to combat, not too exciting. The advance, I believe, is just like an advance to combat. I just have to find my horses here. Oh, I don't see it, and I'm like, it's the same as shield wall. Advance. Oh yeah, it's the same as an advance to combat. The shield wall, non-bow foot units use their shield wall combat strength. Now, interestingly, the Normans can also form shield wall. I'm not going to dispute that. I don't know enough about their style of fighting, but I thought their shields were smaller and less effective for it. They're certainly not the housecarls in terms of that. Attack and pursuit 1 that we know that's like an advance. No, it's not. I'm sorry. The advance to combat we know. The attack and pursuit 1 on the Saxon left is the interesting one. So my intention has been that the Huscarls do not move forward. So they have the optional rule where they don't have to take that, and I had that kind of pre-programmed in my head. It's just I didn't mention it right before the die rolls, and I'm only looking at it a few minutes after, it actually rolled and this, that, and the other. So it wasn't like in real time that I made the decision, but it had been made before any of the rolls, essentially. So they're not going to be affected by this, but the Ferd is. And what that means is the Ferd must move towards the nearest unit. Now, the Huscarls don't block them, so they can come charging through if need be. And they can't move during reaction, during melee. So the other one has an optional. Well, I'd always take that choice because I'd always rather have an option. I can always use the option to pick the command that I just rolled. So I can't see any reason why you wouldn't do that, the way it's worded. Now, what may be more reasonable, so they say, thus the Housecarls treat an attack and pursuit as an optional. The second player, however, must make this decision prior to the order die roll. Well, no one would ever take otherwise unless the option itself also had to be determined. I'm going to rule that it's that way, and that I wanted them to hold with a shield wall. So they're going to be pretty tough, if I can remember that that's what they're doing. But anyway, these others are going to have to launch an attack forward. I've noticed that the sound quality dips down when I'm unable to speak very loudly. That's not too big a shock, but it dips way down, even when I'm holding the camera close to myself, as I am when I'm bidding most things. So there's going to be drifts and stuff. That's just going to be the nature of videoing in this place. I don't want to be shouting early in the morning. The houses are very close. The apartments are very close. Even though it's legitimate for me to be talking loudly at this hour, and some of my neighbors do it, I ain't doing it. Okay. So. Normans start things off. They have their rally segment. I want to use my missiles again. I'm going to try to soften up the enemy because it looks to me like I'm making an attack everywhere, perhaps except, what is that? The right flank here. These horses, I don't know what they're going to do. They may try to swing around. Missile attacks had some effect. A little bit more trimming over here. These guys did not fire, conserving my ammo. Now it's time for movement, and we're restricted again. The knights are holding. We've got the advance to combat, which allows us to engage. And then over here, the infantry is not holding, but these knights have an advance order. Here's the positioning, trying to go for an outflank over here. The horse is moving slowly forward, very slowly. This is a problem. Because Alan here has lost command of his cav force there. I gotta be careful. Let's see if we can move William over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So he can command one of those. That's all he's got in range. We're gonna have a little bit of trouble because of that. However, the Normans are all in command. I kind of wanted to use William over here, where I've got the cav flanking, but it looks like Eustace has a slightly better range. Right now, he's got everybody in command. I need to put this fire out, basically. Okay. Now we're on the Saxon reaction move. Well, the Huscarls aren't going anywhere. I mean, they're backed up by the Ferd. They can't really fall back. However, this one select Ferd unit might want to. and that's on the Saxon right, which has advanced to combat. Uh, so let's take a look at the reaction move rules and see if this does anything. I'm allowed to. The real question is, do I want to? And I think the answer is yes, because I really don't want to get hit in the flank by those units. But I'm weakening, my position by falling back like that. What about missiles? The right command, I've got, some possible capability. So let's look at what we got here. We got some javelins at 2 hexes. That would be a 2 firepower. I could hit him at 1 out of 2. I really don't think I want to throw my missiles yet. I have less of them, but then again, I'm also, shielded for the most part. But those could come in really important, and having one unit throw a javelin doesn't do me any good. The slingers, I don't have a line of sight there, so, and they can't arc fire. They're not bowmen. Which pushes us probably to the melee phase. Indeed. Okay, well, you got to hit everything, and I seem to remember there were additional advantages to shield wall rather than just being in shield wall formation. I'm going to have to look, because I seem to remember they had an additional advantage. It may have been a defense against missiles, in which case we didn't take it into account yet. That would have only been here, and I think that was already in play, because blue didn't fire missiles. I swear I saw something of this nature, but I do not right now. Let me look up the results of the disrupted units. They don't have a zone of control. If they're charge and attack, when you get a disrupted, you get charge or attack and pursue. You rout them instead. That's all I'm seeing here. So this unit's no longer has anything it can attack. These two can hit this. They will be at 8 versus 8, which is 0. I'm going to try to get 2 units on 1 in each case, because that gets me 1-to-1. The terrain type is a ridge going uphill, which subtracts 1 from the melee unit strength of each unit crossing. Well, that drops it. So now I'm at... Well, we'll try with just 2. 8 versus... Sorry, 6 versus 8, which puts me on the -2 table. That doesn't sound good. I roll a 3. I have to make morale checks for my 2 units. My units have a D morale. First one, routes. Second one, routes. I don't think this is going well. Okay, so what's the effect of the route? It's a retreat, but I don't know how far back. Three hexes as soon as the route is taken. And I don't know about their facing. They probably have to face away from the enemy unit. I am going to put them facing away from the enemy unit, but I'll have to look that up because I don't think movement... I think facing changes during movement, but it's not determined by it, so I don't really know what's going on. But my feeling is that they're running away, so that's how I'm going to deal with them at this point. Oh, and if you're unable to move because of enemy units, you're reduced and disrupted. Gotcha. Okay. So there's no pursuit here because these guys are defending. But now we have to deal with the next one. And the problem is we're going to start running to where we're using only one unit against each of those Huskarls. And they're pretty tough to begin with. But we'll use 6 against 8 here. That's, again, a -2. Wonder what that asterisk means. 1, 2, 3, 4. We get a disrupted with an asterisk. Unit disrupted. If the unit inflicting it was charge or attack pursuit, the unit is routed again instead. Okay. I think that's only if they're attacking. So these guys are both disrupted. That doesn't cause any casualty check on the leader. All right, now we're at the point where we can only hit with one unit. So it's 3 to 8, which is a -5, and we can see the Normans are not going to do well here. I take a hit, and I don't believe there's a morale check for this. These counters flip in the wrong direction as far as I'm concerned. Unit is reduced, yeah. Okay, so we're going to continue down the line. It's not going to go well for the Normans at all. In fact, we've got a problem where this guy's... Somebody's going to have to attack 2 units. I thought all these were in shield wall for some reason. I got to try to figure out how to redo all this. Crap. I've got all these disruptions on the board now. I've gotten so bad. Another thing out, which was that this guy's got a flank attack going on here, which is an extra point. Okay. From this chart. All right, so let's try again. So this is 4, 7 to 5 instead of 7 to 8. And I think we're going to allocate 1-on-1 from there on. Just because that 2-to-1 caused a real problem. And these might not be correct, but screw it, man. 7 to 5 it gives me a +2 instead. 5, I cause a hit to this guy. There's nothing exciting that happens to him other than that hit. Doesn't have to make a morale check or anything. So here I've got a leader. I've got 3, that makes 4 to 5. I'm at -1. Not optimal. I roll a 3. I am disrupted. That doesn't cause a loss. So I get one of these D's here. Here it's 3 to 5 -2, and that's going to be my standard. I've got to be careful. I'm going to need to put something to mark this. Because his stuff is shield wall 1, 2, 3. I'd probably say this is around his command. I don't formally define them, but whatever. Okay, so we'll say that's all shield wall from that side over. Okay, where were we? I don't remember. I think we're here with the -2. And we take a casualty there. That's this one. And I'll just keep working my way down the line again. Looks a lot better, though, without those units routed. Shows us the net effect. Still pretty terrible for the Normans, but nowhere near as bad. So here they're rolling on the -2 table. Before they were rolling on the -5 table. This guy had to anyway. The white stripes, those indicate the real casualties. So those are units that have taken a hit already. They take one more, they're out of here. Historically, the early attacks didn't do much of anything. The Normans didn't gain much.
it was late in the day, I think in this, what accounts as the second battle phase here, where the Norman attack was so unsuccessful that the Saxons come charging down and lose some of their hill advantage. And then the counterattack with the cav, etc. I mean, the counterattack with the cav ends up winning the day, basically, and breaking this very strong defensive position. It's a particularly good game to have this kind of order system, because someone who actually stood, someone, if you could control your counters and what they do completely, you would never launch that counterattack. And so the game would have to abstract away that kind of back and forth in such a way that, the map would be tiny or something, or you don't really get a picture of what's going on, or else it would have to give, some kind of completely ahistorical type of positioning to make it possible. Something would have to really break and be ahistorical in the game if you're not accounting for the fact that neither side really could control their troops completely. Now, that's probably the case in almost any medieval game, but it's particularly important in the Hastings or Senlac Hill, whatever you want to call it, battle. The battle absolutely pivoted on a lack of control, but so many of these battles do. Same thing's true with the ancient stuff, and I find it unfortunate that Great Battles of History doesn't have a richer command system either. Men of Iron definitely does not, though. It's, but players don't like not being able to control their pieces, not being able to position them exactly how they want for optimal, value or whatever. All right. Okay, so we've got a bunch of rallying to do here. And I think everything that's damaged is a morale stuff. So all we do is go over to the rally table. Maybe this is where the bonus for shield was? I haven't been able to find it. No. The bonus is if you're in rally range, which is 2 hexes of Herald. Nobody is in that. So basically we need 1 through 5s here. You can pluck these off. The disorders don't do a whole hell of a lot anyway. More to check. Okay. And now missiles. I'm not facing the right way to throw any weapons at anyone. Sucks to be me. And now I get to move. Now I've got problems here. The Saxon left, the Ferd has to come charging out. Other than that, we're okay. Although we may want to do some engagement over here. So this attack and pursue, we must, where possible, move towards the nearest enemy unit. Okay. But we'll see what that means. Okay, so we've moved the Saxons forward, trying to envelop over here, trying to provide a little bit more defense over to this side. Reinforcements continue to stream in. We got more kind of sliding their way over this way. These guys would not be required to attack this guy, but all of these are. So we're going to see a lot of counter swings, and some of those might not go very well. Yes, the Norman attack didn't work, but maybe the counter attacks, which it's going to force, are going to work better. We'll see. At this point, though, the Normans get to pull back, and they're kind of going to want to, because this is not a good location to be in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to back out of here
and back out of here. If you're willing to give ground, you have a lot of flexibility in this game. Those surroundings don't necessarily work as nicely as you think they're going to. That's assuming these guys were all in command. If they were not in command, they wouldn't be able to do that, which is why I had to leave the horses behind, basically. And now I guess I roll a bunch of combats. Let's see how this is going to look. The Ferd had to charge, so boom, boom. Oh, I probably want to get these guys out of the way. What? They're not in a good formation for it, though. They're in shield wall, which I believe disallows them pulling back. However, I don't know if the archers are in shield wall. I'm going to have to look some stuff up. There is an exemption for the bowmen. This is kind of tricky to remember these kind of things. They never adopt shield wall. If the order's in effect, they adopt melee fire in place. But the slingers are not restricted in such a way. I find that unlikely. I would probably give them an exemption too, because I can't see slingers being forced to stand for combat. So what that means is this can pull back. I could conceivably throw this in. Seems like a good idea. Keeps him from having numbers. Those guys are just in hold. They can't. Hold can't advance by doing that, I don't believe. I thought they were in something. Oh no, that's not knights. They're in advance to combat. Let's see if they're allowed to react. I believe they're allowed to react. Yeah. So we'll push them into there, because these guys can't. And I'm staying in range, so that's kind of cool. This bowman, he can't get out of there. He can only move one hex, and he's kind of stuck. That sucks. Otherwise, I think we're in good shape here. Okay. Should I be reacting with other things? Only away from the enemy. Come back here. You're not charging in there. Okay. Alright, so now we determine our battles, and honestly, I'm going to handle this little section first because it looks easier than doing the whole line over here. We do that, the Flemish are going to fire their bows. I don't think anyone else has bows exposed. These guys, even though they reaction moved, are allowed to bow fire. So that's range 2. With a bow is 4. 4 to 3. I'm not going to be able to get anybody else in. So that's probably 1 to 1. And I don't get anything there. But now right up on him, and I'm going to go for probably the greater there. We'll see. That's a 5. Bowman cannot enter an enemy's zone control. Okay. 5 to 4 or 3. So I already have fired on him. I'm going to want to fire on him. So I'm going to fire on him at 1 to 1. That's a 4 morale check. He's got a C morale, which isn't too bad. That's a disorder. And that's good, because that prevents the attack. And then the last bowman, who's going to be shooting at 4 to 3 again. And we get an automatic disorder there. So we'll be able to prevent some of their attacks there. They rolled by the Ferd. It's an interesting one. I rolled what's on -3, rolled a 3-1 with a D star. Well, these guys are in attack and pursue. Attack and pursue is the charge equivalent that the Ferd has. So this guy is going to become routed, actually. While this little thing took a hit. Okay. Now the rout means a 3 hex run. 2, 3. Remember, when you rout, everybody next to you has to make a morale check. Well, get a C there. he routes. Okay, the line is getting worse. Try to stay in range of Eustace. We got a C there. Another route. I love it when games do this. The whole field could collapse at once. We'll just keep going in this direction and try to remember to go back that way. Another C. Okay, that holds. Now we'll go for this C. That's fine, and the bowman in the back is fine. This must advance. We have to look at the rules for that. During melee, D's turn into R's. The attack and pursue order remains in effect. Somewhere there's a pursuit rule. It's attack and pursue, and I'm running out of time here, so I got to be real careful. Must pursue, and it's stopped by the next zone of control. So it'll run into here, and I can actually shift like this if I so desire, or I could stand like this. I'll stand like this because those bowmen are not really that frightening. And I don't want to present my rear because the Normans will hit me. I got a whole bunch more combat to do and not a lot of time, so let's cut the camera. One of the things to keep in mind, though, is I've got a lot of disrupted Normans here. This doesn't have to attack anything, and it's only got a 3 attack strength, so I'm going to hold off on and not use that. But here, I may want to gang up on these because I've got some free passes here. Making the attacks, unless you have an advantage, doesn't seem wise. You know, you don't want to make them, although honestly those Huskarls are pretty damn tough because they're going to be at +3 table or something like that, which looks pretty good. So I don't mind doing that. So this side, I think I'm okay on. This guy's the guy in shield wall. Over here, presumably, yeah, I think I'll be attacking mainly all along the line, even though I've got some free passes. I may use those free passes to gang up in a bigger way. In the line, yeah, but you see a huge hole was kind of burned, a couple of units on both sides. That looked really bad for the Saxons. But then we had a rout, and the collateral domino effect, whatever, of the rout, 2 things. Boy, is it impressive when it's happening, but 2, it's also very mechanically tedious because you're rolling and rolling and rolling, and units are flying back. There's also not quite enough counters. Yeah, so far I haven't run out yet because I've been digging into these guys. They have D's on the back of them and replacing the routed markers. And then I may have trouble finding enough commands to do what I want to do. But obviously, my attacks come into some real serious problems at this point in the center. And here's what we end up with. Not just all there. Some more deaths. Norman units finished off. Remember, that means they took 2 steps of losses. The first step comes for free. Point-wise, points don't actually matter that much, except in terms of decreasing a Norman victory. And in this case, we're looking at 30 points for the Saxons, and we've got 4 of these, 3 Ds, which is 6, 7, 8, and 9 for the Normans. So the Normans are doing well in terms of casualty points, but how well are they doing in terms of army? It looks pretty piss poor to me. And could make an argument that the Saxons want to come streaming off the hill like they did to lose the battle the first time, or the real time. All right, well, we'll push this to the 3rd battle round. At the very least, I think it makes sense for me to pull more reinforcements onto the board before I go chasing after things, but boy, this is tempting. Especially with my Huskarls coming, if they come down off the hill too, I could just smash William's center and get the flanks. I'm really intrigued by the idea of it. All right, this goes up.